In this video we're going to look at the differences between HTML and PHP, and hopefully I'm going to explain how PHP works. PHP is server-side scripting. So the first thing I really want to do is take a look at the differences between them. So at the moment I've got one file called index.html. I'm going to save that. I'm also going to save this as index.php. Okay, so in the same folder, so save index.php, and actually I'm going to close these two down. So I've got index.php, and if I open up my file, HTML file, there we go, I've got them both open because I'm going to just do a little bit of coding in each in a minute. There's no difference between each one. If you remember going back, the way things were set up, if I don't supply a file, it just loads in one file. This should load in index.php. If it loads in index.html, then you might have to change your configuration. So let's just run. There we go. I've got my file. The thing is, I don't know whether I'm actually looking at index.php or whether I'm looking at index.html. They're both the same. There's no difference. Perhaps you might think if it was index.php that I wouldn't see anything at all because it's a different file extension. To make sure we are actually looking at each file, we could specify it on the actual address bar in the URL. So in this one I'm going to load up index.php. There we go, and in a new tab I'm going to do the same sort of thing, but I'm going to load up the HTML file. So if I do that, and then whoops, index.html. There we go. So now I've got both files. Index.php, we can't tell only from the fact that we explicitly called it, and index.html again only because we explicitly called it. They're identical in every way because we just resave this. I want to add a line of code which is going to start making a difference. In between the body and the form tag, I'm going to create a line of PHP code. And the way to write PHP code is with an angle bracket. It looks like a tag as in normal HTML. It's an angle bracket and a question mark, that is important, and then the language, PHP. So that's instructing the browser that what's to follow is PHP code. Then I'm going to use PHP's version of print. In Python you use print to write something to the screen, but in PHP we use the word echo. It's the same thing as print, and then in speech marks after it I'm going to write hello. So it's going to write hello to the page. And finally, which is a major difference between PHP and Python, Python you never ended any line, any statement with any character, but in PHP you have to end each statement with a semicolon. Okay, so I put a semicolon in to end the statement. If you fail to do that, then you will get an error, and the only way you see errors is the fact that the page does not work, it's just blank. So there we go. So I've set it up. Now I've got to end my tag to say, well, this is the end of my PHP coding, and I do that with a simple question mark and a end angle bracket. So that is my PHP code. I'm going to save that. I'm going to copy that. So edit and copy, and I'm going to paste the same thing in the same place in my index.html file. There we go. So both files, they're still identical. However, this time they contain some PHP code, and we're going to have a look at the difference between the two, index.php and index.html. So let's go over to index.php. They've both been saved. So if I refresh the page, reload the page, we'll see what happens. So there we go. So I've reloaded the index.php page, and it's put the word hello at the top of the screen before the boxes, which is exactly where we asked it to do. Going to do the same with index.html, reload the page, and oh, it didn't. It just sort of ignored it. So there we've got the word hello, and here we've got nothing at all. So something different has happened between index.html and index.php. What I'm going to do now, strangely, is take a look at the source code. And to get to the source code, if you right click on your browser page, you can choose View Page Source. There we go. So this is the source page for index.php. And let's take a look. When I typed in the body, so let's take a look at this file here, index.php. If we follow it through, .type HTML, everything in here should be identical to the code that I wrote in Notepad++. So I'll start off with .type HTML, HTML, head, title, meta, end head, body, and then I don't seem to have these PHP tags. Okay, I've just got, well, I didn't got echo. I've just got the word hello. Okay, and then the next line after that is going straight into the form. So that's the index.php file. What I want to do now is take a look at the index.html file. So if I do the same thing, click on the index.html file and view the page source, let's take a look at the difference between that. And we can see that actually this file is identical with this file. In other words, we've got this line of code that we created, okay, in this file. So that is a little bit different to the index.php file. What has happened, because PHP is a language and it's on the server and it's processed, what happens is when the page is loaded, the server looks for any PHP tags. Okay, so it would look all the way through this code, it would find this PHP tag here and say, right, I need to do what it's saying inside up till the endpoint, and it's saying print hello, and it evaluates it. It evaluates all of that line, and the result of that line is just to print out the word hello, which it does. Then it returns that page as HTML back to the browser, and the browser displays the code. So we've executed the code inside here. It's worked. It's been translated and changed into just hello. However, HTML is not processed in any sort of way by this server. What you see is exactly what you get. So the reason why we've got this set of tags that we originally wrote is because there's been no processing going on. So in a PHP file there's some processing, and in a HTML file there is no processing whatsoever. The result of the processing is displayed in the web page. So that's the difference between the two on a very high level. Right at the top of the scale, we're just looking at some very fundamental difference. There are further differences between the two, which we shall come across at some later point.